This image is one of many images that you get from under SALTASH Passage here in Plymouth. It shows a Victorian view with an old frigate in the background, which most people overlook and just see as a nice part of the scenic view. Upon further research looking into this ship, which was known locally as the Training Ship Mount Edgecumbe, or TS Mount Edgecumbe, we realised that it was actually one of the early ships of the Royal Naval Fleet, known as HMS Winchester. She was made out in Woolwich in 1822 and went off to become the flagship of the North American Squadron under the captaincy of Charles Austen, more remembered for his famous sister Jane Austen, the novelist. We're going to go through some short history sections here and show a link between this ship and what else is here nowadays, linking to North America. This ship was laid out after the finish of the War of 1812. She was ordered in 1816, so not long after that war and the Napoleonic War, and she went out to become the flagship of the North American Squadron. The paranoia was still there that the Americans wanted to capture Canada. They were still rebellious. They had a fear of us and we had a fear of them, as tends to happen after conflict. This ship went on to have an illustrious career. She sailed the world, as did much of the Royal Naval ships of the day, and she went to New South Wales, Japan, China. She served in the Opium Wars, the Crimean Wars, before she was later retired. She was retired at first in Liverpool, where she became known as HMS Conway when she became a training ship there for poor, deprived and homeless people, mostly children. And then later in 1876 she was replaced by another ship, HMS Nile, and she was then bought by a Cornish company which had newly set up in 1874, and she was brought down to Plymouth, where she was rested under the bridge, under the Royal Albert Bridge, built by Brunel, where she became the same as she did in Liverpool. She was a training ship for poor, deprived and homeless children, and she was used up until 1920s, when she was finally sold off to a breaker's yard down at Queen Anne's Battery. She was sold off in 1922, and by 1926 she had been stripped of her large timbers, which went off into local recycling for housing, furniture, anything that she could be used for, really. This section of river has been truly a sight to look out across throughout history. For thousands of years now, locals would have crossed this river, made offerings to the Celtic goddess Tamara for safe passage across the rivers. They would have seen many ships come up this river to Colstock, the Romans. They'd have had Greek visitors. Many different empires, risen and fallen, have sailed this river, coming up in conquest or to trade, including the Viking ships as well, which later visited. One sight that we cannot escape is always here in Plymouth, surrounding us, and that's the remnants of World War II. More especially the Blitz, which was the opening scenes to World War II that Plymouth had. And as you can see just behind me, or in front of us, we have a nice sun shelter, which was converted from World War II air raid precautions building, which now just houses a bench for people to rest in, take shelter from the rain, as opposed to taking shelter from shrapnel and falling bombs. But probably the strongest link we have with history here at the moment is that of World War II and D-Day. Many people are familiar with the American involvement in Plymouth during World War II. Their involvement in the war from the 1940s, 1944 especially, when the 29th came across and were in their thousands in Plymouth. They were known throughout the city for their generosity in giving out chocolate, Hershey bars and chewing gums to the children of the city. Some of the elder population who still remember those days often tell me about the phrase, "Got any gum, chum?" How they would ask the Yanks and pester them for things. There's many stories of their involvements in the local population of wherever they were based. One such camp was at the top of the hill, the Normandy Way camp, which bears its name now from the American camp that was there. The Glenn Miller Band visited here and played for the troops once, and the troops were often seen in the areas helping out with blitz clean-ups, just general help around the city. They were very well respected and loved, and we've had a strong link with America ever since. We don't forget this. This section in front of us was built because of the American involvement. This is the chock-a-block embarkation ramp or slip. This was built so that the landing craft could come in and en masse be loaded with the men and equipment needed to recapture mainland Europe. Many thousands of men walked this very slipway to never return onto these soils ever again. There are many images and documented footages of the Americans in the area. You can see on the old path footage of the chaps smiling nervously as they get onto the LSTs, the landing ships, as they set sail down the river to get onto the American warships that would take them across the channel to the beaches of Normandy. You can get this feel from films such as Saving Private Ryan, etc., where you can get more of a realistic feel, because this was some time ago now and a few generations have passed, and you do tend to lose sight of what people did and what they actually felt, the emotions and what they went through in order to secure not just their homeland but our homeland for us. Someone mentioned the other day, and I have come across it a couple times, where people have asked about memorials to these Americans. We have many memorials in Plymouth to Drake, Scott, the Boer Wars, and even the Polish regiments and Polish armed forces that were here. And someone said about the American memorial the other day, so we thought we would bring you across to show you the memorial to the Americans who left this spot. It just shows you that within 50 yards from a resting position of a retired Royal Naval ship that was laid out in fear of the Americans and went off to protect us from a potential American threat, we come to another position where Americans were our friendliest of allies, and they were on our soil going off to help us free others from tyranny. And this is just such a short walk, and yet you have a link between the fear and memorialization of the same peoples.